Hi, and a very warm welcome to Wellbeing, Mission Control. I'm delighted you could join me on this fairly mild spring morning, birds and wildlife flying and dancing around the place. And I wondered how your day is going. Now, let me be a little bit more specific. How much time do you take during the day just to take a break? I know it sounds like heresy, doesn't it? Because we're living in a society that places an enormous amount of importance on working long hours. In fact, in many professions, it seems to be the only way that you can make progress in your career. It's by putting in crazy hours. We know that this leads to burnout, depression, and, to be fair, a very inefficient way of using your raw abilities. But that's the pressure of society. If you want to prove that you are serious about your career, you put in crazy hours. I've known so many people who've taken work home with them at the weekends, not because it really needed to be done, but because it gave them a sense of satisfaction. They were proving to the organization that they were very serious about their jobs. The reality, of course, is a little bit surprising because ever since behavioral psychologists began to look at the way we work, they discovered that the 8-hour day that's been really the legacy of Henry Ford's idea of how to organize industrial production, we're only really productive for about 3 hours a day. Let me just say that again. We're only really productive for around 3 hours a day, and the rest of the time is largely wasted. When that idea sinks in, you think, you mean I spend so much of my life working, doing things to enhance my career, trying to get ahead, and yet most of that time is wasted? Yeah, it is. In fact, it's even more serious than just wasting your time because the level of stress and anxiety that is being imposed on us in very, very busy careers has a measurable effect on how well your mind functions. Cognitive function declines when you're stressed. It's as simple as that. When you're under long-term pressure, your ability to think clearly is severely degraded. What's the answer to this? Well, I'm probably going to be fighting an uphill struggle against the convention that says we should be working 12, 15 hours a day in order to get everything done. But if you can't organize your work so that you can take more breaks, it might be very, very helpful for you to be able to take a mini break. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. At the top of every hour, stop what you're doing just for a moment or two. Stand up, move around, take some deep breaths, move your focus away from the computer screen, look outside, breathe deeply, unlock your shoulders. If you can spend a couple of minutes just moving around and breathing and just changing the way that you're completely locked into your work, you find that your cognitive enhancement is quite measurable. You become more efficient. You tend to be more creative as well. A little bit of space between you and the problem or task you're looking at helps you to evaluate the situation more clearly. You use a different part of your brain. You move away from the stressed survival part of your reflexes to the more creative part. This is a really important thing to be able to do. I'd love you to do it at the top of every hour. Just stop, stand up, move around. If you can, take a break. It would be very, very helpful. In fact, it's measurable. We've spoken before about NASA test pilots who are obliged to take a half-hour nap every afternoon, and it boosts their cognitive efficiency by around 18 to 23%. Might be difficult for you to take a nap and explain it to the boss that you're trying to improve your performance, but the evidence is overwhelming, and those test pilots don't do it for fun. It's a way for their minds to download and process an enormous amount of information. They're more efficient, they're sharper when they wake up. Research shows that the same principle applies to all of us. The other thing I'd like to be able to do is to really make the most of any downtime that you can create, especially around the weekends, a chance for you to really relax, move your mind away from the stresses and pressures of your working life. Look for things that are inspiring, things that stimulate your imagination, allow you to dream. This has a marked effect on the quality of your health. It's a way of boosting your creativity. It sounds like such a simple idea, but I'm going to finish this on the note which we started. We live in a society where we're under huge pressure to work longer and longer hours without necessarily improving our productivity. I want to change that trend and start respecting the quality of your life, because the irony is you're probably going to be more successful and more productive in your work if you create those breaks that break, excuse the pun, that break the chain of stress that lowers your efficiency and productivity. This is how we've evolved, guys. It's just doing what comes naturally for us so that we can deal with the pressures of modern life more successfully, more creatively, without the terrible problems of depression and burnout that are afflicting growing numbers of people. Now, I'd love to know what you feel about this. When I talk to businesses, it's a subject that usually sparks a very lively debate. I'd love to know what you think. Your comments and observations are always welcome. I've got a super busy week in front of me. So as I leave in peace and look forward to being back with you in a few days, allow me to wish you a wonderful week. I'll be back with you soon.